Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this narration of the web series Humans Don't Make Good Familiars. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Book 2, Chapter 29. Suma's Point of View. I was stunned. Jake told me about the dream, or rather, the memory he witnessed. It must have been like something out of a nightmare.
I do not know what to say, Jake. I did not realize Zachariah was capable of such violence.
It doesn't feel real, honestly. Everything I've seen and heard about him up till now, it doesn't match. But then again, he was a Viking warrior and was no stranger to killing. Jake was sitting on a log, and I was perched beside him. We were not far from the castle's entrance.
I do not doubt you, or the dream itself, but I do agree with you. It simply does not make sense. Zachariah was Ambrose's familiar. He could not have done something so horrible without his master's permission, and I doubt the hero mage who defeated the Chaos Dragon would have agreed to slaughter innocent civilians en masse.
I thought quietly for a moment, while Jake and I sat in silence.
Even if he was a Viking, it feels as if some important detail is missing.
Maybe not. It doesn't matter. It was a long time ago, right? Jake sounded somber. He did not lift his head as he spoke. What matters is, I never want to see that ever again. I'm never going to use magic like that. Not for anyone or anything.
Jake, do you remember anything else from the memory?
Jake was quiet for a moment. Yeah, I think he was using runes.
Why do you believe that?
Jake turned and looked at me. His eyes looked tired. He kept healing himself. He would allow himself to become incredibly injured, and then the pain would just vanish. I never saw how it happened, but I guess he was doing the same thing I do, using runes to make up for his weaknesses.
Are you sure?
I asked, confused. What Jake was saying could not have been possible. No, I guess there could have been some other way.
I think perhaps there was. At that time, rune scrying was not nearly advanced enough to heal a mage of Zachariah's caliber during combat, I explained.
Runes, as Jake knows them, were not developed until long after Zachariah's supposed death.
Jake, you summarized the events of the memory for me, but could you please explain in greater detail everything you saw?
Suma, I don't really want to think about it anymore, Jake said.
I know, Jake, but please. I feel as if we are missing something important.
No, Suma, I just can't, okay? Jake said. His voice was barely a whisper.
Okay, Jake, never mind,
I said after hearing his voice. I had not seen Jake like this in quite some time.
I think it would be a good idea if you talked to Dr. Maxwell again. Will you please?
Jake did not reply, but he did nod his head that he agreed. I sent him home and flew to the place that myself and the other members of the travel group were staying tonight. Jake's point of view. I reappeared back in my mum's house, in the room I had been staying in whenever I asked Suma to send me back to England, because Suma was staying in another city at the moment. I'd been here for a few nights, rather than my room at the base. At the moment, I was laying flat on my bed, staring up at the ceiling. I opened my phone and scrolled through the contacts until I saw Dr. Maxwell's name. I pushed it and waited for her to answer.
Hello,
she said. Hey, Doc, it's Jake.
Hi, Jake. How are you?
She asked. I stayed quiet for a moment. I honestly didn't know how to respond.
Do you have any appointments available for today? Do you need to come in right now? She asked, concerned.
Yeah.
Okay, come anytime. I'll stay late and send Veronica home.
I thanked her and hung up, then drove to her office. It was about 5 in the evening at this point, and because it was winter, the sun was already starting to set as I pulled into the car park of her office. Walking in, I noticed most of the lights had already been turned off, and the receptionist was already gone. I walked to her office and knocked on the door.
Jake,
she called out. I opened the door. Yeah. Thanks for letting me come so late. Dr. Maxwell was sitting in a chair across from the couch, reading a magazine.
It's no problem. What's going on?
She asked. I sat on the couch. Suma suggested that I come and see you.
I'm glad to hear that she's keeping your well-being in mind. Did something happen?
She asked, and put the magazine down. I sighed. Yeah, sort of. I spent a few minutes explaining what happened and the dream, and I even started talking about the problems with the detective. It was like as soon as I started talking about what was going on, everything just started pouring out of me all at once. When I finally finished, I felt better, lighter even. Wow, I'd nearly forgotten how good it feels to come and talk with you. Thank you, I said.
I'm always happy to listen, but If you don't mind, I do have some questions, Dr. Maxwell said. I nodded for her to go ahead. I'd like for you to tell me more about this dream. Are you sure it was a memory, and not just that, a dream? I know you said that, in the past, you've been worried about what will happen when you do eventually go to war, and how it might affect you.
Well, pretty sure that it was a memory, and not just my imagination. Over the last 2 years, I've had to get pretty good at telling the difference. But yeah, I guess I'm still worried about that.
Jake, it's okay not to fight. Not everyone has what it takes to be a soldier. I'm sure Suma would understand if you did ask to leave, she said.
I know she would, but I don't want to leave Suma alone. I can't.
Can't? Can you explain what you mean by that?
I don't know how to explain it. Maybe it's because I'm her familiar, and that's playing into it somehow. Or maybe it's just because we are friends, but the thought of leaving her behind, I just can't do it.
Dr. Maxwell nodded her head and wrote something down in a notebook that she had on the coffee table beside her chair.
Do I sound crazy? I asked.
No, Jake. That makes sense to me. She put the notebook back down.
Thank you again for letting me come so late, I said.
No problem. Besides, it's probably better to have these kinds of conversations alone, she smiled. Do you want to make an appointment for next week while you're here?
Sure, I said. And we set a time for another appointment, one in which she would go to Suma's world and talk with her too. After that, I drove home. Nearly 3 hours had passed since Suma sent me back to England, and night fell over an hour ago. Man, I whispered to myself while driving, I sure let time get away from me in there. Eventually, I arrived back home and noticed something was off. There was a grey sedan parked outside the neighbor's house. At first, I thought it was just that they had guests, but when I drove by, I saw someone in the passenger seat ducked down. I couldn't see into the car, but I could guess who it was. The detective again, I groaned. I thought about getting out of the car and confronting her, but realized that was a bad idea. Instead, I pulled into my mum's driveway, went inside, and called the cops. About a minute and a half later, I hung up with 999. The sedan drove away, and 3 minutes later the police arrived. They took my statement, asked a few questions, and even talked to the neighbors whose house the car was parked in front of. Apparently, a lady matching the detective's description and saying that she was a police officer told them that she was posted here for a few nights to watch out for someone who was breaking into houses in the area. The police then stationed a patrol car outside my house for the night in case she returned. After all was said and done, I called my lawyer, Robert, and told him what happened.
I'll take care of this, Jake. You made the right decision calling me, Robert said after I explained what happened.
She won't get away with blatant harassment like this. Trust me on that. End of chapter. Book 2, Chapter 30. Jake's Point of View. Suma and I, as well as the Niema captain that travelled here with Suma, were waiting outside the council room to give our answer to the requests yesterday. None of us knew how they would react, so tensions were pretty high. On several occasions, I started imagining all the worst-case scenarios, and how, if it came to a fight, what I might do. But each time I reassured myself that wouldn't happen. In reality, I couldn't even be sure I was the one who was nervous. Lately, my mental connection to Suma was getting stronger, and so I could sense her feelings more easily, especially if they were strong ones. Most likely, I was feeling some combination of both of our anxieties, which really wasn't helping. A small blue Niema flew out and, without landing, said, "They are ready for you. Follow me." The other flew after her, and I kinda had to jog behind them to keep up. After settling into our places, them perched on poles and me standing beside Suma again, the council member who we had been interacting with so far spoke up. Have you reached a decision regarding our offer?" Suma was the one who answered.
"We have, and we cannot accept it. Our apologies."
"And may the council inquire as to why? If it is a simple matter, we should be able to make accommodations."
"We simply do not believe that we are, as of yet, ready to work with the council and the court mages. However, we will reconsider your offer in the future, if it is still available at the time." The council member's eyes all started glowing, and then suddenly stopped. What of your familiar sentinel? Do you agree with your master's decision?" I glanced over at Suma and the captain, who both looked shocked. Suma's feathers were even puffed slightly. "I do." All of their eyes started glowing again, and did not stop for at least a full minute. Not one sound was made in that time.
but eventually they did speak. "That is a shame. Our offer will remain open to you for the foreseeable future, and should you reconsider, please contact us and we will welcome you both."
Suma and the captain bowed deeply, and Suma said, "Thank you for your offer and your understanding." With that, we were dismissed and escorted back into the hallway. "Wait here a moment," the Niema who was leading us said, and landed on the ground. She turned to us. The others landed beside her, and I eventually caught up. "Why does everyone have to fly so fast?" I thought, annoyed. "Her Majesty Queen Ompera has requested your presence in 1 hour in Her Majesty's royal chambers," the guide said. Her Majesty's chambers? Why?" Suma asked. "She wishes to speak with you about Sentinel and your future in the army." The guide turned to Captain, who was with us. "My apologies, but she has only extended this offer to Lady Suma and Sir Sentinel." The captain seemed bothered, but didn't say anything about it. Over our private connection, Suma asked, "What do you think, Jake?" "I think I'm not dressed to meet royalty, but we might be better off accepting." We accept the Queen's invitation," Suma said to the Niema. "Excellent, Captain Rosian. I will have someone else escort you out. Lady Suma, Sir Sentinel, please follow me to the waiting area so that we may discuss royal etiquette." The guide motioned to a nearby Niema, who was perched on a metal pole, and Captain and Niema flew off. I'm no expert, but I was pretty sure that he was unhappy. "Maybe you should just fly ahead and summon me when you get there," I suggested, not wanting to try and chase after them anymore. "All right, we will wait for the guard to return and to stay with you, and then we will fly ahead," the guide said. A few minutes passed, and the guard returned, and they flew away, and eventually I was summoned. When I woke up, I was standing in a large auditorium-like room. There were wooden pillars along the walls, and each of them were made of what looked like whole trees that had been twisted together like a loose braid. Along the outer edges of the pillars were bright, multicolored flowers, some of which had different red, orange, and purple fruits. "Nice place," I said, looking around. "Queen Ompera will arrive shortly. Let me explain proper meeting protocols," the guide said. She was perched on a bar near the center of the room. "Firstly, the Queen will enter the room from the left of our current position, and will settle there." She pointed at a large hole in the wall that I assumed led outside, and then motioned to a vertical post made of polished metal. At the top of the post were several tangled vines, making a kind of nest-shaped area. "Before this happens, we will signal you to bow. Sentinel, do your people have a concept of this act?" "Yes, I come from a country with a queen as well, Queen Elizabeth II. Can you please demonstrate your people's bow to your queen?" I bowed my head in a traditional way. I suppose that'll be fine, but if there is anything else you could do, I do not wish for anyone to claim that you are being rude to Her Majesty," the guide asked. "Well, hundreds of years ago we would get down on one knee, but that fell out of fashion," I explained, and then demonstrated the bow. "I'm sorry to ask, but would you mind doing that one? It is much closer to the one our people use, and I feel it'll go better with her ministers and attendants." "I don't mind. I want to be respectful too," I said, standing back up. "Thank you, Sentinel. Moving on, once the Queen has taken her place, she will allow you to rise and introduce herself formally. After she does that, you will do the same, and your meeting will formally begin. She will explain why she has invited you here, and she may even drop the formalities at that point. From there, simply respond in a respectful and appropriate way. Once she has finished, she will dismiss you, and we will guide you out. Do you have any questions?" Sentinel was curious if he was dressed in appropriate garments to meet with the Queen," Suma said, and I snorted. I doubt she was making a joke, but I still had to stop myself from laughing. "What he is wearing is perfectly suitable, but if he wishes to change, I believe he has plenty of time." I think I'll be fine," I said, still trying not to laugh. We spent the next hour talking about Queen Ompera with the guide, and several Niema brought us seeds with pots of dirt in case we wanted food. Once the hour was up, it was time to meet the Queen. End of chapter.
I would quickly like to thank our Tier 5 patrons, Dragzoon WRE, Quantum Wednesday, AmbroseKTal, Lord Ashrakal, Bushmaster 177, Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, and Arcadian. Thank you very much.